Uncle Doug,
Hello.
I like the nightlife.
That's
I
what
like the boogie
you are known where you are known
on
as,
the disco.
Yep.
I don't know what that word even is, but
Yeah, nobody does.
nobody does.
By the time you're at that word, you're dancing too hard to listen to
Yeah,
lyrics.
you're something's up and you're having a great time, and it's 1978.
Well, and the disco is a place of where I feel the spirit, and by which I mean the 1970s disco, where I was never allowed to go, but
Yeah, because
wish that I could
four.
go.
Are you talking about disco the music or the discotheque, the place
The
where you
the
dance to the
discotheque.
music? Thank
The
you.
disco-
I guess I
Discoteca.
could still go to a discotheque if I were in Berlin or something.
Yeah, that's where I go to like when I really got to work something out. I just hit the floor, man. I just leave it all there. Like Kevin Bacon when he does his solo in Footloose.
Oh, yeah.
In the barn. It's like that's me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, with exactly those dance moves too.
Yeah, it's kind of not every discotheque is equipped for that, but
Right, you got to cover a lot of ground.
yeah, some are aware I'm coming, and so they can set it up.
Well, listen, discotheque or not, many of us have had what could be called a deeply spiritual experience. It could be spurred on by a moment of intense emotion, like the birth of a child or a near-death experience, or it could be achieved through deep meditation or just spontaneously pop up for no apparent reason. Probably crossed a ley line or something. But even non-believers can have powerful moments where we feel some sort of deep connection to the people or the world or the universe around us. I want to take us all back in time to the year 1962. It's Good Friday, and a group of 20 graduate divinity students all enter Marsh Chapel, which is a lovely sort of neo-Gothic structure smack dab in the middle of the campus at Boston University. There, they hear a languid, slower equals more meaningful service given by the legendary Reverend Howard Thurman, who was Martin Luther King Jr.'s mentor. Now, there was nothing particularly unique about the service that they heard that day. It was pretty much what you'd expect from a Good Friday service. Jesus was amazing, and bad people killed him, but he came back, hooray, sort of thing.
Yeah,
But, as written by somebody way smarter than me. Good writing notwithstanding, it was nothing that these divinity students hadn't heard before. In point of fact, it was a sentiment they had presumably heard every year since their childhood. Though, seriously, I listened to a bunch of this particular service, which I managed to find online, and whoo, Reverend Thurman, hit the gas a little.
Oh,
You're
yeah?
being lapped by old Mormon apostles.
Oh, really? Super,
God.
super slow?
Yeah, boy, howdy. It was mesmerizing. Anyway, slow sermonizing notwithstanding, half of those students subsequently reported having one of the most powerful spiritual experiences of their lives.
Gas leak.
Like life-changing. The other half? Just another day at church. So why only half? What made the difference? Well, this was the now famous Marsh Chapel experiment, led by Walter P. Pankey, a graduate theology student himself at Harvard Divinity School. He wanted to see if he could manufacture a deep spiritual experience in people specifically primed for religious feelings and belief. Prior to attending the service, the subjects were divided in half. One half was given a large dose of niacin, which would have minor physiological effects, including, their faces flushing and getting hot and tingly. That was the control group. The reason that the control group needed to feel something weird was because that this was a double-blind study, and everybody needed to plausibly think that they had gotten the real experimental substance, which in this case was psilocybin.
Okay,
That's right. He sent half the group to church tripping balls on magic mushrooms.
So tell me again what religion this was?
Well, I mean, the chapel was just sort of a non-denominational. Well, I think it started out as a Methodist church, but now it's non-denominational.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure what it was at the time. But yeah, he sent all of these Christian theology students, divinity students, in, but half of them were tripping on mushrooms.
Holy cow.
Did they know they were going to be taking a psychoactive drug?
Yes.
Okay, they
yes. They knew that and they knew that it was, and like I said, it was double blinded. So the other half took
A
the
placebo,
niacin,
essentially,
which made something happen in them.
Yeah.
But didn't have the same effect as psilocybin,
Right.
obviously. And guess what? It totally worked.
Of course it worked.
Even 25 years later, 9 out of the 10 subjects that got the psilocybin reported that the event was one of the high points of their spiritual life. Now, this experiment, which was conducted under the supervision of Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, who was later known as Ram Dass, of the Harvard psilocybin project, it wasn't great science, but it did point to a phenomenon that has been confirmed by many studies since. Apparently, mind-altering drugs can totally convince people that they've touched the divine.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, you say it like it's so obvious. I don't think...
Probably it would be true. I wouldn't know.
Yes, thank you for walking that back. Look, there's no way to know for sure, but
How do
it
I
has
hit
been... Yeah,
rewind? on this?
exactly. I'm just going to have you cut out of the whole episode.
Thank you.
I don't think we need you.
Thank you.
It has been theorized, and it is totally possible that religion itself came into existence because humans started using entheogenic drugs. Now, astute listeners to our show will recognize the word entheogenic from episode 135 when we discussed the Aztec god Xochipilli.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to say it on that episode either. Which is the flower prince of the Aztecs. He was adorned with many plants, all of which can apparently get you high as fuck. That word, entheogenic, was coined in the late 1970s by some ethnobotanists. That would be people who study the interplay between humans and plants. And it literally means something that causes God to be in you, but figuratively means something more along the lines of something that causes spirity feelings. It turns out that drugs do this really well. Like, really, really well. It also turns out that there are references to drugs in a lot of ancient religious texts. So the theory that drugs were a major part of early religion is not completely out of left field. Hell, there are Stone Age rock art images in Siberia depicting people with mushroom-shaped heads, or mushrooms growing out of their heads, or their hands. Prehistoric mushroom-themed petroglyphs also exist in Algeria, Spain, and even here in Utah. Now, obviously, some pictures scratched into a rock wall aren't proof that people practiced psychedelic-based religious rituals. But there's some compelling evidence that could be that could be exactly what was going on. Consider, for example, the account by Swedish Colonel Philip Johann von Strahlenberg, who wrote in 1736 about the Koryak people of the Kamchatka region of Siberia. Remember that Siberia is where some of those petroglyphs are.
And importantly, Kamchatka is where Doug always wanted to concentrate his armies in Risk.
In Risk,
And I
obviously.
never lost.
Nope.
Obviously, because
Because of its strategic importance.
because of the mushrooms.
Yeah.
So anyway, Philip Johann von Strahlenberg fought in the war between Sweden and Russia in the 1700s and was captured by the Russians and sent as a prisoner to Siberia. So the Koryaks he wrote about lived in a place that was literally so horrific that other people were sent there as a punishment. So no wonder then that they were still regularly eating psychoactive mushrooms.
Yeah.
And not just eating it, not everybody could afford to have a constant store of the fungus, so the less fortunate folks would wait around when the more well-to-do types would get high and show up with wooden bowls. Apparently this is true. Those who were tripping would eventually grace the others by peeing into their bowls, and that pee was then happily lapped up, and it would be more than enough to get the next dudes high.
Oh, my
Wow.
God.
And then sometimes they would bestow their pee on somebody, and apparently you could get high off the 4th or even 5th round of pee. So, pro tip there, I guess.
Boy, I'd hate to be the 6th guy in line.
Right? Oh, man.
Or maybe it's
even
just
get
more
me high.
concentrated by then.
Yeah, maybe it's even better.
Yeah.
This phenomenon was later confirmed by other travelers over the years. All of it seemed to be connected to the religious practices of the region. The use of mushrooms was common in many Siberian tribes, particularly among their shamans, who used the drugs to get to an exalted state and talk to the gods. Arguably, the most ancient religious writing that exists is the Hindu text, the Rig Veda, excluding the Epic of Gilgamesh, because scholars disagree about whether it's religious in nature. The Rig Veda is dated between 1500 and 1200 BCE, so it's old. Not too long after that is the Zoroastrian text from Persia, the Avesta, or Avesta. Both of these describe the use of a drink derived from a plant called Soma in the Rig Veda and Hauma in the Avesta. That caused ecstatic feelings of power and supernatural abilities. People who knew how to use Soma could use them to converse with the deities. Here's a fun little Vedic verse as an example. Heaven above does not equal 1/2 of me. Have I been drinking Soma? In my glory I have passed beyond earth and sky. Have I been drinking Soma? I will pick up the earth and put it here or there. Seriously, have I been drinking Soma? I'll have what he's having. Am I right?
Yeah, and this whole time with Don Jr., I thought it was cocaine, but apparently it's Soma.
Right, exactly. So research suggests that ancient so-called mystery religions of ancient Greece used entheogens. One group of researchers even suggested that the prophecies of the Oracle of Delphi had a little help from gases that wafted up from the ground there.
Yeah, I've read that.
So that's fun.
Some sort of hallucinogenic gas. I don't know what that is, but I want it.
But that's a hell of a place to build an oracle.
Maybe it was over a dentist's office and they were just getting nitrous.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Always build your office over a dentist's office.
Oh,
just
your
in
oracle.
case. Yeah. Of course, the native people of the Americas found lots of fun ways to commune with the divine. As I mentioned before, the Aztecs really knew their way around some fuck-you-up plants. The use of peyote is still an integral part of Native American religions. One famous way that South American natives came into contact with the gods was through the use of ayahuasca, a plant-based tea concoction that is still very much around and is currently being studied, though not very well, as it is illegal in most countries, for its potential to help folks with all kinds of psychological ailments. Ayahuasca goes back to the very earliest Aboriginal people of the Amazon basin, which I assume means that Lamanites figured out how to make it.
Yeah.
There are lots of theories about ancient Jewish drug use and even entheogenic origins of Christianity, but that's all so far back in history that it's just speculation. There are, however, far more recent religions with lots of good records to look at. So how's this for interesting? There is a paper published in the Journal of Psychedelic Studies, which seems to be a real scholarly journal, co-written by several people, including friend of the show, Bryce Blankenagel of the Naked Mormonism podcast.
I was going to bring that up. Bryce has some opinions here.
Yes, indeed. This paper makes a credible case that the frequent ecstatic visions and angel sightings, etc., in the early days of the Mormon Church were consistent with the use of entheogens. Now, I'll admit that I was pretty skeptical of that thesis, but they're really thorough in their research, and by the end of the paper, I found the claim pretty compelling, especially considering that the major spiritual experiences that were reported during Joseph Smith's reign fell off completely when Brigham Young took over.
Yeah, that guy was a narc. He was no fucking fun.
100%. But maybe our boy Joe might have been doping folk, which is an interesting theory for how to get a religion started and not completely implausible. If you
Yeah,
ask me.
it gives new meaning to the old spirit eyes of the witnesses, right?
Right.
Well, it also, you're going to talk about the white salamander letter at all, Dan?
No.
It just informs the fact that the church was so willing to purchase that forged document off of Mark Hoffman.
Right.
Because there was, almost certainly in the upper echelons of the Mormon church, at least some notion that Joseph Smith might have been.
Tripping balls.
Yep.
Yeah. Dude, the reason that it was plausible was because of so many other stories that we know about Joseph Smith where he did talk about seeing all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah,
He could have just been making it up.
He was, into magic. He was into dowsing.
Yeah.
He was into spiritism.
Yeah.
So if that was a tool that was in vogue or being passed around those circles, I can't imagine he wouldn't have availed himself of it.
Right.
Well, and it's not just, and if it were just him, I'd be fine with saying he probably just was faking and making it up. But it was congregants that were also experiencing, very sort of ecstatic visions and all sorts of things. So it's very possible, the three witnesses, there's a story in Mormonism where three men went with Joseph and quote unquote witnessed the golden plates, though they never saw them with their eyes.
They saw them with their spirit eyes.
They saw them with
Exactly.
their spirit eyes. Maybe the reason, because I always thought, God damn, that is pure balls of Joseph Smith to be like, all right, guys, we're going out into the forest and you're going to see the plates, but not in person. You're going to see them with your spirit eyes. I thought that was just pure balls, but I feel like maybe you have a better chance of it if you get everybody stoned before you take them out there.
Yeah.
Look, regardless of whether entheogens were the origin of the religion or not, or of religion in general or not, as we learned from those filthy hippies in the 60s, drugs can be powerful in the creation of religious feelings. Mm-hmm. Take, for example, the drug DMT, annoyingly nicknamed the spirit molecule. DMT is the active ingredient in ayahuasca, but can also be taken in a much more powerful form on its own. In an online survey of over 2,500 people who had tried DMT, researchers at Johns Hopkins University found that almost 60% of respondents said that using DMT had triggered a belief in divine or supernatural entities. Here's the thing. DMT takes you away. You lose all sense of where you are or
Like
even
Calgon.
who you are. What was that, Uncle
Like
Mark?
Calgon.
Yes, indeed.
You guys aren't old enough. You don't remember that. Okay, fine.
Oh, no, I know Calgon will take you away.
Yeah.
It's true.
Because the active ingredient was DMT.
That's right. That's right.
And DDT.
It got your clothes clean and made you high as fuck.
Yeah.
No, you go all the way away. You go into a fully hallucinogenic place and time. Literally everything you experience in the short time that DMT has its way with you is divorced from reality. Not that I would know, because, I wouldn't admit to the crime of having tried a Schedule I substance. But if I had, I could tell you that you definitely feel like you went somewhere completely unrelated to where your friends can later confirm that your body stayed. And while this podcast officially says you should not engage in illegal activity, if you do try DMT, be sure that there are friends that you trust staying sober there with you.
Yeah, because
Now-
otherwise your body will go away.
It'll just wander off.
Yeah.
And what will you have to come back to?
Or at the very least, your kidneys.
The respondents to the Johns Hopkins survey had taken DMT an average of 14 times.
Wow.
They frequently reported meeting up with entities that they saw alternatively as angels, gods, demons, fairies, aliens. My friend called them guides. They're usually felt to be benevolent and often reported as giving wisdom and understanding. There is a different possible outcome, however. Less than 15% of the time, the entities are experienced as judgmental or malicious, which can lead to a pretty scary trip, at the end of which Dave, who has spent the night excitedly telling you about how awesome the entities are, will get very snooty with you and imply that there's something wrong with you spiritually. Well, fuck you, Dave.
Fucking
it's just
Dave.
a stupid drug, not a conduit to a special universe. And no, it definitely hasn't made you more wise or more in tune with humanity, no matter what Joe Rogan and his idiot guests say. Fucking Dave. Anyway, that wasn't a personal thing at all.
No.
I'm just saying in general.
Your complete lack of kind of emotional attachment to that story made it clear that it had nothing to do with you personally.
It was about that Johns Hopkins thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, look, there are a lot of potential positives to the use of these drugs. Psilocybin is looking very promising as a clinical treatment for depression. Ayahuasca could be amazing for PTSD, as could MDMA, also known as ecstasy. The list actually goes on and on.
Yeah, I have a friend who has been going through ketamine therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And,
there's a form of ketamine that is now that is kind of the first psychoactive drug that has been legalized for use as in a clinical environment. So that's great.
And I think he's in one of the first kind of groups of that. Yeah.
Is there such a thing as single malt Scotch therapy? Just I'm asking for a friend.
It's not a clinical therapy. But definitely it exists.
Yes, the bartender therapy is a time-tested method.
Right. And if you don't have a bar around, you can be your own therapist.
Yeah.
Look, unfortunately, since the substances are on the super duper no-no list in many countries, they're really hard to study. We'll see what happens, but for now they're illegal, so don't use them. For real. You might have a nice time, but you might also develop a bunch of really goofy beliefs and start a religion, so side effects may not be worth the risk.
You may find yourself getting shot out of an upper story window in Carthage, Illinois, and be like, this took a turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there you have it, fellas. Don't do drugs. Is pretty much the constant message of our show, right?
This is a constant message of our show. It's moderation in all things is what we talk about here on the How to Heretic.
But if you do, found a religion and make some money.
Right.
Yeah.
But definitely don't believe that something amazing. Look, here's the weird.
Something amazing does happen. It does happen. It's just it's not supernatural.
Right. You're fucking with your brain chemistry. Your brain is the only thing that you are.
Yeah.
Like, your brain is you, and you're fucking with it. So whatever you experience was real, was your experience of a thing. That doesn't mean anything supernatural happened. It doesn't mean you encountered an entity. You encountered what your brain makes up.
You encountered
know what I
you.
mean? Like, it might have been a really profound experience, and great. Go with that. You know, if you feel like you became more wise because you understood something that you didn't understand before, okay. Just please, it will annoy me way too much if you tell me that it was that you actually encountered something spiritual, because it's just too annoying for words.
Yeah, you just spiked the punch of your brain chemistry, and that can be a good time, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
All righty. Well, let's shine on.